In the 1920s, being hired at the Radium Dial Company was considered a dream job. The pay was excellent, far above what most young women could earn elsewhere. The work was considered skilled, the factory was bright and modern, and the material the women worked with, radium, was glamorous. It was the wonder element of the age. It glowed. It was used in medicine. It was in the newspapers as the miracle of modern science. The women who painted watch dials were told it was safe. They were told to keep their brush tips sharp by putting them in their mouths. They went home glowing. Literally, the paint fluoresced in the dark, and they thought it was charming. The company knew it wasn't safe. They had known for years. And when the women started getting sick and dying, the company lied, covered up the evidence, and fought them in court. This is the story of the Radium Girls and how they changed the law for every worker alive today. The Radium Girls, a story of courage, tragedy, and the fight for justice. To understand the Radium Girls, you need to understand how the world felt about radium in the 1910s and 1920s. Radium had been discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie in 1898. It was radioactive, but at the time, radioactivity was not yet understood to be dangerous. It was mysterious, it was energetic, and that energy was interpreted as vitality. The result was a radium craze that seems almost unbelievable today. Radium was put in toothpaste, in face cream, in chocolate, in water, marketed as a health supplement. There were radium spas, radium butter, radium bread. A product called Radithor, essentially radium dissolved in water, was sold as a cure-all tonic and enthusiastically consumed by wealthy Americans. Into this environment, the U.S. Radium Corporation set up factories in New Jersey and Illinois, hiring hundreds of young women to paint luminous dials. The women were trained to point their brushes with their lips to achieve the fine tip needed for the tiny numerals. They did this dozens of times per day. Some of the women painted their nails, their teeth, their faces with the leftover paint as a joke, to glow at their boyfriends in the dark. By the early 1920s, women in the New Jersey factory were getting sick. It started with their jaws, toothaches that wouldn't resolve, teeth that fell out, jawbones that fractured spontaneously, wounds in the mouth that wouldn't heal. Doctors were baffled. They had never seen anything like it. Then women started dying. Amelia Maggia was one of the first. She died in 1922, aged 24. Her death was attributed to syphilis by the company-hired doctors, a diagnosis that was both incorrect and damaging. This was not an accident. Syphilis was stigmatized, hard to disprove, and neatly shifted blame away from the factory. More women followed. The pattern was unmistakable. Radium, which the body treats like calcium and deposits directly into bones, was destroying their skeletons from the inside. The company knew. Internal documents later revealed that management had been aware of the dangers since at least 1920, before many of the women had even been hired. The U.S. Radium Corporation mounted an aggressive and coordinated cover-up. They hired their own doctors to examine the workers, doctors who consistently found no connection. They pressured independent researchers to suppress their findings. They used their legal teams to delay, complicate, and drain the resources of anyone who tried to sue them. They arranged for the body of Amelia Maggia to be exhumed, not to find the truth, but to build the case that she had died of syphilis. The company suppressed the results. They also used the statute of limitations aggressively. They argued that the injury had occurred when the women first ingested radium, years before they showed symptoms. The women fought back. In New Jersey, 5 workers, including Grace Fryer, found an attorney willing to take their case and filed suit in 1927. By the time the case came to court, several of them could barely walk. Some had to be carried into the courtroom. Grace Fryer had a back brace and could not turn her head. In 1928, the company settled out of court. Each of the 5 women received a lump sum and an annual pension. It was a victory, but many had little time left. The New Jersey case was not the end. In Illinois, workers faced the same illness and the same corporate obstruction. Catherine Donahue became the central figure. She testified, lying in her bed, in pain, about what the company had done to her and her colleagues. She died 5 months after the hearing, but not before receiving the ruling. The Illinois Supreme Court ultimately upheld the ruling, establishing that employers could be held liable for occupational illnesses even years after exposure. The Radium Girls changed the legal landscape. Their cases established that companies could be held liable, directly influencing the creation of OSHA decades later. Their bodies also contributed to science, providing early data on radiation effects that would later inform safety standards for nuclear workers and patients worldwide. Some of the women who had ingested radium were so thoroughly contaminated that their remains, when tested decades after their deaths, were still measurably radioactive. Grace Fryer, Edna Hussman, Catherine Schaub, Quinta MacDonald, Albina Larice, Catherine Donahue, and dozens more. The least history can do is remember their names. Every worker today who has the right to know what they are being exposed to, those rights have roots in what these women did. They fought and they won. Subscribe for more forgotten history and remember their names. Thank you for watching.